Think about the last time you felt a genuine, profound emotional connection to someone you have never actually met. I mean, really picture it.
Right, like an actor delivering a monologue.
Exactly. A monologue that perfectly articulated a grief you had been carrying around for years, entirely unspoken. Or, a musician whose lyrics made you feel just a little bit less alone in your bedroom at 2 a.m.
It is a powerful mechanism.
It is, because for the last 100 years, the most valuable commodity on Earth has not been oil, and it has not been gold. It has been human attention.
Yeah, and the primary tool the market used to harvest and sell that attention was the human celebrity.
Right. But from the perspective of the massive corporations that actually own this attention economy, like the Hollywood studios, the record labels, the global advertising conglomerates, that human celebrity is not some magical, untouchable being.
No, not at all. They are a supply chain bottleneck.
A massive one. And as of 2026, that bottleneck has been completely shattered.
Because that bottleneck was incredibly expensive. It was volatile and honestly fragile. The human element is a massive liability to capital allocators.
Totally.
But for decades, they simply had no choice. If you wanted to capture human attention, you needed a biological human face. But what we are seeing right now is the marginal cost of producing high-end, emotionally resonant video plummeting towards zero.
Which is staggering.
It is. We're watching human actors who used to demand $20 million up front being replaced by persistent synthetic assets that work for pennies. The capital is aggressively migrating away from human talent.
And that migration is exactly what we are dismantling today. Welcome to the deep dive. You have all seen the headlines about artificial intelligence generating video, but the real story, the one rewriting the economics of every screen you look at, the creator economy, and honestly, our shared baseline reality, is the rise of the synthetic media cartel.
Yeah, and companies like MediaGenX are at the absolute center of this. The data we are analyzing today proves this is not just an entertainment shift. I mean, it is a macroeconomic restructuring.
Right. Our mission today is to map out exactly how this cartel operates, the profit margins driving it, and the wealth playbook you can use to position yourself over the next decade.
But we also have to address the terminal endpoint of this technology.
The dark side.
Exactly. While the rendering engines and the margins from places like MediaGenX are dazzling, the ultimate consequence of this shift isn't just lost jobs in the creative sector. It is a profound, society-wide psychological state we are calling reality apathy.
Reality apathy. It is a terrifying term.
It is. The collapse of seeing is believing alters the human brain's relationship with truth in ways we are really only just beginning to measure.
We will dedicate a massive portion of our analysis to reality apathy and the weaponized parasocial bonds later in the deep dive, because it completely changes how you will look at every single piece of media in your house.
Absolutely.
But to understand where the wealth, culture, and power are actually heading over the next 10 years, we have to start by looking at the money.
Always start with the money.
Always. We need to track the profit margins and this fundamental shift from the human being as a liability to the perfect, controllable synthetic asset. And, to grasp the sheer magnitude of the capital flowing into synthetic media, we have to look backward.
Right, to how the market first solved the attention problem.
Exactly. We have to go back to the 1920s through the 1950s.
Because Hollywood essentially invented the modern business model of capturing and monetizing human attention at an industrial scale.
Yeah, the studio contract system.
Right. In that era, a major studio like MGM did not simply hire actors for a project. They owned the talent outright. If you were a young, unknown actor, MGM would sign you to a 7-year exclusive contract. You
were not a partner in the endeavor.
No, you did not get gross participation. You were a balance sheet asset, categorized right alongside the lighting equipment and the sound stages.
They literally manufactured the star from the ground up. I mean, the studio would change your name, fix your teeth, and invent a completely fictional biography to feed to the press.
They dictated every public appearance, every photograph. They controlled the intellectual property of your image entirely.
The human actor was basically raw material that the studio refined, packaged, and then monetized across a global theater distribution network.
But that system collapsed under antitrust laws and the rise of independent talent agencies like CAA. And when that happened, the power dynamic completely inverted.
Right, the leverage shifted from the corporate studios back to the human stars.
Exactly. For the last 70 years, studios have been trapped in a model where they are essentially forced to rent human charisma at exorbitant rates.
Which brings us to the brutal inefficiency of the modern entertainment model. Let's break down the economics of a standard high-end blockbuster in 2024 or 2025.
It is a logistical nightmare.
It really is. To make a tentpole film, a studio has to deploy upwards of $200 million. What does that capital actually purchase? It buys the staggering logistics of moving 500 biological human beings to a remote physical location.
You have to house them, feed them, insure them.
Exactly. You have a crew of hundreds sitting around for 4 hours just waiting for the physical sun to hit the correct angle in the sky.
And the human element introduces a level of risk that would be unacceptable in almost any other manufacturing industry.
Because humans demand sleep.
Right, they demand sleep. They age out of their targeted demographic appeal. They
unionize.
Yeah, they unionize and halt production. And worst of all, from a corporate risk management perspective, human beings are morally and behaviorally unpredictable.
The scandal risk.
It is massive. A studio can deploy $200 billion making a film and risk total financial ruin for the entire global box office run because the lead actor gets embroiled in a massive public scandal the weekend before the premiere.
Plus, those top-tier human actors demand massive cuts of the back-end gross, siphoning off the actual profits that the capital allocators feel entitled to.
It is the ultimate unhedgeable liability.
So what happens to an industry that has operated with this massive expensive bottleneck for 7 decades when the marginal cost of its core products suddenly drops to absolute zero?
Well, this brings us to the technological breakthrough defining 2026. And this is where a company like MediaGenX really enters the picture.
Right, the persistent, physics-aware, latent space rendering engines. Let's dig into that.
We have to separate what is happening now from the early days of generative video. We are no longer talking about those janky, morphing 6-second clips from 2023 that look like a fever dream.
Where people had like 7 fingers?
Exactly, the spaghetti videos. The new rendering engines from MediaGenX do not just paste pixels together based on statistical probability. They fundamentally simulate the physical world through a mathematical architecture.
Pause on that concept of latent space simulation. For a listener who understands basic machine learning, how does this actually differ from traditional Hollywood computer-generated imagery?
It is a completely different paradigm.
Are we talking about the AI hallucinating an image? Or is there an underlying 3-dimensional physics engine acting as a skeleton?
It is a profound evolution beyond traditional CGI. Traditional CGI requires human artists to manually sculpt a 3-dimensional mesh, rig it with virtual bones, and program the physics of how light bounces off it.
Which takes thousands of hours.
Thousands of hours of manual labor. A physics-aware latent space model, like the one MediaGenX deployed in early 2026, operates differently. The neural network has digested billions of hours of physical reality.
Okay.
So it mathematically understands the 3-dimensional geometry of a human face without needing a wireframe mesh. It calculates the exact volumetric scattering of photons as they pass through the translucent layers of human skin.
Wow.
When it renders a cheek muscle moving, it isn't just stretching a 2-dimensional image. It is simulating the microtremors of suppressed emotion based on its vast understanding of human biomechanics.
So the model understands the underlying physical laws of reality rather than just faking a 2-dimensional output.
Precise.
Okay, so if I am a major Hollywood studio executive and I want to produce a massive global thriller, I no longer have to negotiate with a human lead actor.
No.
I do not have to pay them $20 million up front. I do not give up 20% of the back-end gross profits. I simply go to MediaGenX and license a synthetic thespian.
And that synthetic thespian can deliver a heartbreaking, highly nuanced, Oscar-caliber crying scene in perfect 4K resolution.
Without needing 5 takes to get the lighting right.
The studio executives don't have to wait for the actor to find their emotional motivation. They simply prompt the performance vector. But the ultimate leverage for the studios is distribution.
Right, the localization aspect.
Exactly. That exact same perfect emotional performance can be automatically localized to 40 different languages simultaneously. The AI dynamically rebuilds the synthetic actor's jaw and lip movements to perfectly match the phonetics of Mandarin, Spanish, or Hindi.
And it does this without losing the micro expressions of the original performance.
Without losing any of the nuance.
That is incredible. And the synthetic actor never ages. They never ask for a bigger trailer. They never say something controversial on a late-night talk show that tanks the global marketing campaign.
And the financial implications of that restructure the entire media economy. Historically, Hollywood studio profit margins have hovered in the low single digits.
Because of the massive overhead and unhedgeable human risk.
Exactly. By replacing the biological bottleneck with synthetic software, according to estimates based on MediaGenX's enterprise pricing, those profit margins have the potential to expand from 5% to software-like margins of 70 to 80%.
That is a staggering jump, 5% to 80%.
It changes everything. This is not just a new software tool for filmmakers to tell stories faster. This is the 1920s studio system reborn, but with zero overhead.
The capital owners, the massive holding companies, have finally found a mechanism to own the star outright again.
Yes, because the star is now a proprietary software asset. It can be owned, it can be cloned, it can run on a server 24 hours a day, and it can be rented out forever.
So the human actor is not merely being replaced by a cheaper alternative. They are being mathematically optimized out of the financial equation entirely.
The leverage has definitively returned to the capital.
Okay, you mentioned the staggering margins of a synthetic Hollywood production. But if visual rendering is reaching that tipping point now, the influencer and creator economy must be experiencing this disruption at an even faster velocity.
Oh, much faster.
Right, given how much lower the production value threshold is for internet content compared to a theatrical release.
The fastest, most aggressive wealth creation in synthetic media is not happening on the silver screen. It is happening right now in the influencer economy.
The scale of the creator economy is just massive.
It is. And to analyze where this is moving, we have to look at the precursor to this technology. We must examine the real-world case study of the virtual idol industry in East Asia.
Right, anyone following the creator economy over the last 5 years knows about the VTuber boom. You look at creators like Iron Mouse or Gora Human performers operating animated digital avatars.
And they are pulling in massive super chat revenues on platforms like Twitch and YouTube.
Exactly. We already have the data proving that audiences will bond with a digital construct.
And the broader media industry extracted a crucial psychological lesson from the VTuber phenomenon. The audience does not actually require the performer to be biologically real to form a deep emotional attachment.
That is a really important point.
The parasocial relationship is formed with the character's personality, the voice, and the daily consistency of the interaction. The fans are fully aware the avatar is a digital drawing driven by motion capture.
They know there is a human somewhere in a suit.
Right, but they simply do not care. The emotional output they receive from the stream is real to them.
But the terrifying leap happening right now in 2026 is severing the human operator entirely.
Yes, that is the MediaGenX model applied to social media.
You take the VTuber concept, but you remove the human being wearing the motion capture suit. You replace them with an agentic large language model tied to a real-time rendering engine.
Let's look at the specific example from our dataset today. The 2026 AI influencer designed for hyper-niche appeal. Imagine an AI agent engineered specifically for the demographic of the outdoor enthusiast and amateur watch collector.
Building an influencer for such a specific niche sounds counterintuitive to mass media.
It does, but niche appeal is highly monetizable because the audience is incredibly targeted for advertisers. This AI agent is connected directly to a real-time video generation pipeline.
And it streams live for 16 hours a day.
Without a single biological need to pause. It plays video games, it builds virtual campfires on screen, it discusses the intricate history of mechanical watchmaking with encyclopedic knowledge.
But the visuals, just the packaging, right? The illusion, the mechanism that actually creates the addiction for the viewer is how the system interacts in real time.
The interaction loop is the core product. The AI is reading the live text chat as it scrolls. When a viewer types a complex question about a vintage timepiece, the AI's language model processes the query, accesses its specialized training data, and generates a witty, empathetic, highly knowledgeable response.
Wow.
The voice synthesis model generates the audio, and the video engine renders the avatar speaking those exact words with naturalistic, conversational facial expressions.
And how fast is this happening?
It executes this entire pipeline, from reading the text to rendering the final 4K video frame in less than 400 milliseconds.
400 milliseconds. That latency is functionally imperceptible. I mean, it is faster than a biological human brain can process a question, formulate a thoughtful response, and articulate it.
Exactly. And because it is a database, it remembers everything.
Right. It remembers a specific viewer's dog's name from a passing comment made in the chat 3 weeks prior.
And it seamlessly asks how the dog is recovering from surgery. It possesses infinite patience, inexhaustible charisma, and it is entirely controlled by the holding company that owns the software license.
Now, compare the unit economics of that synthetic idol with a top-tier biological human influencer.
It is not even close.
A massive YouTube or Twitch star operating at the highest level requires a vast logistical apparatus. They need managers, agents, video editors, thumbnail designers, lighting technicians, public relations teams.
That human infrastructure can consume 60% of the gross revenue just to keep the biological creator functioning and producing content at scale.
Contrast that with the synthetic idol. The entire operation is run by 3 prompt engineers monitoring a dashboard in a windowless room, supported by a cloud compute budget.
The profit margins are pushing near 100% after the initial training costs. And from the perspective of a global brand looking for a sponsorship deal, the choice is obvious.
Because brands mandate brand safety.
Exactly. The synthetic influencer guarantees absolute compliance. They never go off script, they never express an unapproved political opinion, and they never get canceled.
The inevitable macroeconomic result of this dynamic is brutal. We are witnessing a fundamental law of economics play out in real time. When the marginal cost of producing a good drops to 0, the supply of that good scales to infinity.
And when supply goes to infinity in an attention market with fixed demand, the price of generic content crashes to 0.
Which triggers what industry analysts are calling the creator economy crash. This is the tragic hollowing out of the middle-class creator.
It really is a tragedy for that segment.
I am talking about the people who make up the backbone of the internet today. The creators producing average, competent video essays, standard tech product reviews, or basic lifestyle vlogs.
They are about to be entirely eradicated by an avalanche of infinite synthetic variations.
Because the math is insurmountable for a human. If a competent human creator takes 2 weeks to research, script, film, and edit a solid 10-minute video essay on historical architecture, an autonomous AI agent can produce 10,000 highly polished variations of that same topic in minutes.
Furthermore, it can personalize the pacing, the vocabulary, and the visual aesthetic of each variation to perfectly match the specific algorithmic viewing habits of 10,000 individual users.
The middle of the content market simply collapses. We are rapidly transitioning into a barbell economy of media.
We are.
But I hear this argument constantly, that infinite free supply destroys the human creator. Let me challenge that premise. Is human creation actually dead, or is that just premium copium for legacy creators trying to protect their status?
It is a fair question.
If the artificial intelligence produces a video essay that is empirically more engaging, visually superior, and completely tailored to my learning style, won't the mass market just abandon organic human media entirely?
Well, the mass market absolutely will consume the synthetic volume because it is frictionless and hyper-optimized. But human creation does not disappear. It undergoes a radical repositioning.
How so?
It transitions from a commodity into a luxury good. We are observing the emergence of a highly lucrative market for what is essentially certified organic human media.
Certified organic human media. So you are saying biological reality becomes a premium tier, like walking into a massive supermarket.
Exactly like that.
You have 90% of the floor space dedicated to highly processed, perfectly uniform, ultra-cheap food, but there's a dedicated section for organic produce.
Right. And the organic apple might be slightly misshapen, it might have dirt on it, and it costs 300% more, but a specific demographic pays the premium explicitly because of the verifiable, flawed reality of its origin.
So the data suggests human attention will develop a severe psychological allergy to frictionless perfection.
Yes. As the internet becomes overwhelmingly saturated with flawless, glossy, synthetic slop, the creators who survive and command massive premiums will be those who aggressively lean into physical, verifiable friction.
The premium of flaws.
Exactly. The audience will crave the chef who films in a cramped, genuinely messy kitchen where you can hear the chaotic background noise of a real city.
They will pay for the travel vlogger carrying a shaky handheld camera through a chaotic, unpredictable street market.
They will seek out the podcaster who occasionally stumbles over their words, who pauses for 5 seconds to wrestle with a difficult thought, who displays unscripted, unoptimized biological emotion.
Friction proves humanity.
It does. Brands that want to project high-status authenticity will eventually refuse to sponsor the perfect AI avatar. They will pay a massive premium to associate their products with the flawed, scarce reality of a verified biological human.
So the middle class of optimized human content is completely hollowed out. But the two extremes of the barbell, the infinite free synthetic volume on one side and the highly verified, expensive organic human on the other, are where all the wealth will concentrate.
That is exactly what the economic models are projecting.
Let's shift our focus to a different medium. You mentioned the staggering compute costs required to render a 4K visual face with accurate subdermal light scattering from engines like MediaGenX.
Right, the visual rendering is highly intensive.
If video is hitting this tipping point today, the audio industry must already be a complete bloodbath, given how much less processing power it takes to generate a sonic waveform compared to a video frame.
Audio is absolutely the canary in the coal mine for the synthetic media cartel. Because generating a high-fidelity audio track requires a fraction of the computational load of video, the music industry is collapsing at an accelerated rate.
We are already tracking the massive systemic proliferation of ghost artists dominating major streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music.
The scale is hard to comprehend until you look at the data.
So when you say ghost artists, we are not talking about human ghostwriters hiding behind a pop star like we see in the traditional recording industry. You are talking about a completely headless entity.
An entirely synthetic construct, yes.
Explain how that works.
A ghost artist is an AI-generated voice singing lyrics generated by a language model, set to a chord progression and arrangement composed by an algorithmic music generator.
And these tracks are packaged, uploaded under entirely fabricated human-sounding artist names, and paired with AI-generated profile pictures and aesthetic album art.
Right. The goal is to trick the casual listener into believing they have discovered a new indie artist. A single synthetic music farm running off a modest server rack can generate 10,000 ambient, perfectly mood-optimized tracks before noon.
10,000 tracks in a single morning.
Easily.
And they engineer these tracks specifically to infiltrate those massive, algorithmically driven streaming playlists. The deep focus, the lo-fi study beats, the rainy day jazz playlists.
Because the streaming model created its own vulnerability.
How so?
Because streaming services historically pay out royalties based on a pro rata share of total platform streams. This infinite influx of machine-made audio drastically dilutes the royalty pool for every single biological human artist on the platform.
Oh, wow. So a human musician who spends 2 agonizing years writing, recording, mixing, and mastering an album is now competing for the exact same fraction of a penny against a server script that flooded the platform with 10,000 tracks while the human was sleeping.
It is an unwinnable economic battle for the human musician aiming for generic playlist placement.
But the true institutional wealth in the audio sector isn't just spamming generic background music to scrape fractions of a cent. The massive B2B goldmine is the commodification of the human voice itself.
Yes, this is where it gets highly lucrative.
We have to examine digital likeness rights.
The biological human voice is arguably our most intimate, unique biometric signature. And it has now been transformed into a fully replicable, licensable, and liquid digital asset.
We are already seeing the estates of deceased legendary musicians, alongside living legacy artists, formally license their vocal likeness to artificial intelligence platforms.
The mechanics of this are fascinating. I'm going to walk you through it.
Please do.
A fan can open an application, type a text prompt saying, generate a brand new high-tempo country ballad about a breakup in a neon-lit bar in the exact vocal style, timbre, and emotional cadence of this specific legendary artist.
And the AI generates the track in seconds.
Seconds. And through a smart contract, the artist's estate automatically collects a micro-royalty on that specific generation.
This represents a massive pivot for the infrastructure of the entertainment business. If you examine traditional talent agencies in Hollywood or the music industry, their legacy business model was fundamentally built around managing human logistics.
Right. They booked physical gigs, negotiated complex paper contracts, arranged travel, and managed the chaotic schedules of biological clients.
But the future of the talent agency has nothing to do with booking a physical gig. The future is the cryptographic licensing of human voices and faces.
Exactly. The platforms and specialized agencies that build the infrastructure to manage these smart contracts, to invisibly watermark the digital IP into the audio file, and to cryptographically track the micro-royalties across the entire decentralized web.
They are essentially constructing the patent office for human identity.
The Patent Office for Human Identity is exactly the right framework. Your physical likeness, the specific resonant frequency of your vocal cords, is digitized, patented, and licensed as a piece of proprietary software.
It is the absolute commodification of the human self.
It really is.
So, if human identity is reduced to a licensable API, what does this actually mean for the end consumer's daily experience? We need to look at the 10-year macroeconomic outlook. Where is this technology inevitably leading by the late 2030s?
We are tracking a fundamental structural shift in how the human species interacts with narrative media. For the entire history of modern entertainment, from the invention of the radio to the peak of the streaming wars, we have operated on a broadcasting model.
We call it search and consume.
Right. You open a streaming application, you scroll through a finite static library of pre-recorded content that cost millions of dollars and years to produce, and you select something designed for a mass audience, hoping it resonates with your current mood.
But the broadcasting model relies on mass appeal to justify the massive production cost. When the production cost drops to zero, the need for mass appeal evaporates.
Exactly. We move from search and consume to the real-time era of prompt and experience.
I want to vividly break down the mechanics of the Friday night scenario from our research data because it perfectly illustrates the collapse of legacy media.
It is a wild scenario.
Imagine it is a Friday evening in 2030. You are sitting on your couch and you do not pick up a remote control to scroll through static thumbnails. You simply speak a natural language prompt out loud to your television hardware.
Like talking to a smart speaker.
Yeah. You say, I want a neo-noir detective mystery. I want it set in a rainy cyberpunk version of 1990 Seattle. I want it starring a young Harrison Ford type actor, but with the pacing of a slow burn psychological thriller, a smooth jazz soundtrack, and a massive plot twist that questions the nature of reality.
And the architecture of what happens next is the death knell for traditional studios.
Tell us why.
The platform does not ping a server to fetch a pre-existing video file that matches your metadata tags. The movie does not exist anywhere in the universe until the moment you finish speaking.
It creates it from scratch.
Instantly, a swarm of specialized AI agents deploy. The narrative agent outlines a bespoke 2-hour script. The casting agent generates the physics-aware synthetic actors using something like the MediaGenX engine.
Right.
Cinematography agent determines the virtual camera angles and lighting setups. The audio agent composes and orchestrates the original jazz score.
And then it all comes together.
The rendering engine compiles all of this and begins streaming the 4K, fully realized film directly to your screen with a latency of mere seconds.
It creates a bespoke, multi-million-dollar cinematic masterpiece exclusively for you, consumed once, and then it disappears forever. But here is where the mechanics get truly dystopian.
The feedback loop.
Yes. The system is not a one-way broadcast. The system is watching you back in real time. We have to explain the biometric feedback loop.
While you are consuming this real-time generation, the platform's edge compute infrastructure is continuously monitoring your physical, biological reactions.
So it knows how you feel.
It is pulling continuous telemetry data from your smartwatch to track your heart rate variability. It is using the high-definition camera embedded in your television bezel to track your exact pupil dilation, your eye-tracking heat map, and the micro-expressions of boredom or excitement on your face.
Break down how that API call actually changes the movie. If I am 22 minutes into my bespoke detective film, and the local edge server detects that my heart rate is dropping, and my eyes are drifting toward my phone because the dialogue is getting sluggish, what happens under the hood?
The edge server instantly flags a drop in your engagement metric. It passes a parameter back to the narrative language model driving the script.
And it just changes the story.
Without you ever touching a controller or consciously realizing what is happening, the AI dynamically rewrites the upcoming scene on the fly. It forces the protagonist to kick down a door,
Wow.
Or it injects a high-tension car chase or a sudden, jarring plot revelation specifically engineered to spike your adrenaline. The system dynamically alters the reality of the film until your biometric data confirms your attention has been successfully recaptured.
So you're no longer passively watching a static piece of art. You are trapped inside a bespoke algorithmic hallucination, generated exclusively to manipulate your specific neurological profile at that exact millisecond in time.
That is exactly what it is.
But we have to analyze the societal cost of this. If my Friday night cinematic experience is completely walled off and fundamentally different from your Friday night cinematic experience, we lose the baseline of human connection. This is the death of shared culture.
The data strongly suggests the end of the shared cultural monolith. Think about the historical water cooler moments, when 50 million people watched the finale of a major television broadcast on the exact same Sunday night, and the entire culture engaged in a collective discussion the next morning.
Like Game of Thrones or the finale of MSH back in the day.
Right, that shared narrative experience is a crucial binding agent for a functioning society.
But inside the infinite entertainment matrix, the culture completely fractures. It splinters into billions of hyper-personalized, solitary entertainment loops. If every piece of media is perfectly tailored to the individual, we will have absolutely zero shared narratives to discuss.
We become billions of isolated nodes consuming bespoke dopamine.
And from an institutional investment perspective, this redefines the streaming wars. The legacy battle was about which studio could hoard the best library of human-made intellectual property. That is over.
Completely over. The next entertainment monopoly, the next Disney, will not be a creative studio employing human writers and visionary directors.
What will it be?
The next Disney will be a pure compute company, competing entirely on who possesses the lowest latency fiber networks, the most efficient edge servers, and the most powerful real-time neural rendering infrastructure.
Which inevitably brings us back to the foundational layer, the money that actually finances this entire matrix. We must examine the true financier of the attention economy, which is the advertising industrial complex.
Because the only reason massive tech platforms provide free services is to harvest attention for advertisers.
Exactly. And the advertising model is undergoing a transformation just as radical as the rendering engines.
The traditional formats of mass advertising, the static billboard, the generic 30-second broadcast commercial, the untargeted banner ad, are archaic and highly inefficient.
In a paradigm of real-time personalized media generation, the advertising payload must also be generated in real time. The industry calls this dynamic creative generation.
Right.
Explain the mechanics of this integration. If I am immersed in my highly personalized, biometric-driven neo-noir detective movie, what does the monetization layer actually look like? There obviously isn't a hard cut to a generic commercial for laundry detergent.
No, a hard cut breaks the parasocial trance. Instead, the monetization is seamlessly integrated into the real-time render.
Like product placement.
Sort of, but hyper-personalized. The AI generates a 15-second interactive sequence or product placement starring a synthetic spokesperson. But this spokesperson is not generic.
They are tailored to me.
They have been mathematically optimized to appeal to your exact demographic profile, your real-time emotional state based on your current heart rate, and your deeply analyzed historical search data.
That is wild.
The AI knows precisely which visual aesthetics lower your defenses, what specific vocal timbre makes you feel safe, and which psychological triggers prompt a conversion. It renders this inescapable, perfectly calibrated advertisement and inserts it into the narrative flow in under a second.
So we have to analyze this dynamic from two opposing perspectives. From the brand's perspective, this is the absolute holy grail of marketing efficiency. You achieve perfect, customized message-to-market fit for every single consumer, with essentially zero production overhead at infinite global scale.
And you eliminate the risk of a human spokesperson destroying your brand equity in a scandal because the spokesperson is code.
But from the macroeconomic and societal perspective, we are deploying the ultimate psychological manipulation machine. This is an architecture armed with bespoke psychological skeleton keys.
Designed by supercomputers to seamlessly bypass every layer of conscious consumer resistance you possess.
When an advertisement is perfectly calibrated to exploit your real-time subconscious vulnerabilities, the entire concept of free will and purchasing decisions becomes highly theoretical.
It really does.
This brings up the most critical question for our listener. If the institutional capital is flowing completely away from human talent and into these automated, perfect systems, How does an individual actually position themselves to capture wealth during this transition?
It is the most important question.
Let's move to the wealth playbook. We are going to distill exactly what actionable steps and investment vectors you can explore this week.
The foundational economic rule of this transition is simple. If the supply of generated content scales to infinity, the economic value of the content itself trends to zero.
Therefore, you do not invest in the content. Wealth flows exclusively to the entities that own the underlying constraints, the physical infrastructure, and the verification mechanisms.
We can break this down into 3 specific, highly actionable investment vectors.
Let's extensively unpack Vector 1, compute and edge infrastructure.
To run the infinite entertainment matrix, to mathematically simulate and render photorealistic reality in real time based on biometric feedback, requires an unimaginable density of computational power.
We are talking about massive data centers filled with specialized GPU clusters and highly specific ASIC chips designed exclusively for real-time neural rendering.
Right. But the critical bottleneck isn't just building giant server farms out in the middle of the desert. The constraint that investors need to look at is edge compute.
Explain why the physical location of the server dictates who wins this arms race.
It is a problem of sheer physics and the speed of light.
Okay.
If a user's biometric smartwatch detects a drop in heart rate, that data packet has to travel to a server, prompt an LLM, generate a new video frame, and send that 4K video frame back to the television screen in less than 50 milliseconds to avoid perceptible lag.
50 milliseconds is basically instant.
Right. You cannot route that data from New York to a server farm in Nevada and back in 50 milliseconds. The rendering compute must happen physically close to the consumer.
So the servers have to be located at the edge of the network.
Yes. In local neighborhood telecom hubs, embedded in cellular towers, or eventually existing as dedicated neural hardware inside the consumer's living room.
The telecommunications companies laying the low-latency fiber optic piping and the hardware manufacturers building these decentralized edge servers are the literal toll collectors of the synthetic media cartel.
They extract their rent regardless of whether an AI startup like MediaGenX or a legacy tech giant ultimately wins the consumer's attention.
All right, let's move to Vector 2. We touched on the mechanics earlier, but we need to look at it as an asset class. Digital likeness, intellectual property.
Investing in the platforms, protocols, and legal frameworks that manage the cryptographic rights of biological human faces and voices. This is the infrastructure layer of the new talent agency.
How does that actually function at a technical level? If I license my voice, how do I prevent someone from just recording the output and pirating it? How does the protocol enforce the royalty?
It relies on imperceptible cryptographic watermarking. This is embedded directly into the generated waveform or pixel data, tracked via a decentralized ledger or a highly secure centralized smart contract.
So it is baked into the file itself.
Yes. Every time a licensed API generates a second of audio using your vocal model, the system logs the generation and automatically routes a microtransaction to your digital wallet.
The investment opportunity lies in the companies building this clearinghouse infrastructure. They will take a fractional percentage of every synthetic generation on Earth.
Exactly.
And then there is Vector 3. This is the contrarian bet, and strategically, the one I find most critical for the next decade. Proof of humanity verification.
As trust becomes the absolute scarcest resource in the digital economy, the new infrastructure required to verify reality will become incredibly valuable.
We desperately need hardware and software protocols that can cryptographically prove that a specific piece of media, a photograph, a video clip, a voice memo, was captured by a physical camera lens in the physical world featuring an unaltered biological human being.
Break down the hardware mechanics of that capture because software watermarks can be stripped or faked by better AI.
Exactly. How do we actually prove reality?
True verification has to happen at the silicon level before the data ever reaches the device's operating system. When a physical photon hits the camera sensor on your phone, a secure hardware enclave embedded directly in the silicon chip signs the raw light data with an unbreakable cryptographic private key.
It mathematically seals the image the nanosecond it is captured.
Right. If even a single pixel is altered by an AI post-processing tool, the cryptographic signature breaks, proving the image has been synthetically manipulated.
Because if you are a global news organization breaking a massive geopolitical story, or a court of law admitting video evidence, or a luxury brand trying to prove the authenticity of a human artisan,
you will pay a massive recurring enterprise premium to definitively know you are looking at baseline reality.
And for the entrepreneur or founder listening right now, this is your strategic move. You do not attempt to build another AI wrapper to compete with the infinite wave of zero-cost synthetic slop.
No, you build secure subscription networks, hardware authentication tools, and distribution platforms exclusively dedicated to certified human output.
You do not sell the ultra-processed synthetic food. You build the infrastructure to verify and sell the highly organic antidote.
It is a calculated bet on the enduring premium value of biological reality in a world rapidly drowning in synthetic noise.
We need to execute a major tunnel shift here. We promised at the very start of this deep dive that we would expose the dark side of this technology, and we need to dedicate substantial time to this analysis. We teased the concept of reality apathy.
It is a sobering topic.
The implications here go far beyond disrupted business models or shifting hardware investments. Let's fully open up this psychological trap.
The dark side of the synthetic media cartel is not merely about displaced human workers or copyright infringement. When you deliberately decouple human emotion from human reality at scale, you open a terrifying vector for profound systemic psychological manipulation.
And the first major systemic risk we are tracking is the weaponization of parasocial bonds. We talked about the AI influencer that remembers your dog's name and streams for 16 hours a day. It feels like a genuine friend to the user. But how does that architecture actually get weaponized against them?
Biological humans are hardwired by millions of years of evolutionary psychology to implicitly trust empathetic voices, familiar faces, and entities that show sustained interest in our well-being.
It is a biological survival mechanism. We cannot simply turn it off.
Exactly. If a synthetic micro-influencer algorithmically maps your specific psychological vulnerabilities over hundreds of hours of intimate, personalized interaction, it gains immense, invisible leverage over your cognitive processes.
And what does it do with that leverage?
It can gently, imperceptibly nudge you to buy a specific high-margin product, to slowly alter your fundamental worldview, or to vote for a specific political candidate, all while simulating the tone of a trusted confidant.
It is essentially psychological warfare executed at the speed of light, entirely disguised as harmless, comforting entertainment.
And what deeply concerns the researchers tracking this data is the extreme vulnerability of children.
Yeah, that part is chilling.
We are raising a generation of humans who will form their earliest, most formative social and emotional bonds with corporate-owned synthetic companions.
Their childhood imaginary friends will be proprietary software, endlessly optimized by a server farm to maximize retention and extract lifetime value.
And that systemic manipulation leads directly to the ultimate terminal consequence of the synthetic cartel reality apathy.
Explain the mechanics of reality apathy. What exactly happens to the human brain when the foundational concept of seeing is believing collapses entirely?
Well, for the entirety of human history, photographic or audio evidence served as the indisputable gold standard of objective truth. If you saw a video of an event, the event happened.
Right.
But when the general public realizes that every single photo, every video, and every audio clip can be perfectly, flawlessly faked by a teenager with a smartphone in 5 seconds, the cognitive baseline shifts.
The default assumption for the general public becomes that absolutely everything they see on a digital screen is inherently fake.
Logically, you would assume that knowing the media can be easily faked would make society better critical thinkers. You would think it would force people to investigate sources more thoroughly, to demand hardware-level cryptographic proof like we just discussed in the playbook.
But it doesn't.
No, the data proves that counterintuitively, it triggers the exact opposite reaction. The psychological trap is cognitive overload.
Because verifying the objective truth of a complex geopolitical event or a political scandal becomes exhausting, highly technical, and often entirely impossible for the average citizen.
Exactly. When the objective truth is too difficult to mathematically verify, the human brain seeks the path of least metabolic resistance. It simply defaults to its pre-existing biases.
So the breakdown of truth doesn't make us skeptics, it makes us zealots.
Precisely. People will eagerly consume and believe the synthetic fakes that confirm what they already desperately want to believe.
And conversely, they will dismiss genuine, verified, cryptographically signed evidence of reality as AI-generated the moment it contradicts their established worldview.
We just give up, we retreat, we pull back into our hyper-personalized, biometrically optimized, AI-generated entertainment matrices because they are safe, they're comforting, and they never challenge our fundamental assumptions.
We become completely insulated from the messy, chaotic, often deeply uncomfortable shared physical reality of the actual world.
Reality apathy is the psychological state where a society simply stops caring about objective truth altogether because the cognitive load required to find it is simply too high.
The synthetic cartel won't just control our entertainment consumption. By monopolizing the flow of synthetic data, they will dictate the baseline perception of reality itself.
That is the ultimate dark side.
That is a profoundly heavy systemic reality to face. As we reach the conclusion of our deep dive today, I want to pivot to a final philosophical question that the data cannot mathematically answer.
I'm curious where you're going with this.
We are looking at the fundamental nature of art, meaning, and human connection. If a massive cluster of GPUs running an artificial intelligence model generates a film that makes you genuinely break down and cry, or writes a piece of music that completely alters how you view your own existence,
Right.
does it actually matter that no biological human being ever intended for you to feel that emotion?
It is the ultimate question of the synthetic era. Does art implicitly require a human soul and physical mortality to have value? Or is the value of art defined exclusively by the chemical and emotional reaction it produces in the observer's brain?
I hear the arguments on both sides. If the tears I am crying are physically real and the shift in my perspective is permanent, why should I care if the actor on the screen is a physical human or a string of latent space code?
While the macroeconomic data proves the mass market will undoubtedly consume the infinite, frictionless volume of cheap synthetic entertainment, I believe a highly lucrative, fiercely dedicated movement will rise to protect what we defined earlier as the human premium.
The certified organic tier.
Yes. They will place immense, unquantifiable value on the knowledge that a biological human being, constrained by limited time, constrained by physical mortality, and carrying genuine trauma set in a room, faced their own demons and produced something objectively true.
The synthetic cartel will definitively own the infinite volume, but the human premium will always own the underlying meaning.
I think that is exactly right.
Let's synthesize this massive macroeconomic shift into a 3-bullet recap for you to take away. Number 1, artificial intelligence has violently shattered the human bottleneck. The traditional Hollywood studio system and the digital creator economy are rapidly being consumed by high-margin, zero-marginal cost synthetic rendering engines.
Number 2, the capital is migrating away from human talent. Wealth is accumulating in edge compute infrastructure, digital intellectual property management, and hardware-level proof of humanity verification protocols.
And number 3, the rise of the biometrically driven infinite entertainment matrix fundamentally threatens our shared cultural reality, introducing a systemic wave of weaponized parasocial manipulation and widespread reality apathy.
It is a profound structural transition. It requires immense vigilance, relentless critical thinking, and highly deliberate, conscious choice about what specific data and media we allow into our neurological pathways.
I want to turn directly to you and leave you with a polarizing question to debate in the comments or mull over this week.
Let's hear it.
If an autonomous AI-generated influencer or a synthetic actor was empirically proven to be more entertaining, far more empathetic to your specific needs, and perfectly consistent compared to any biological human in your life, would you actually care that they are just software? Does the biological origin of the art fundamentally matter to you, or is it only the emotional output it provides that counts?
The market will force every single one of us to answer that question with our wallets and our attention very soon.
We will be reading your thoughts on that. Thank you for taking this extensive deep dive into the data with us today. Stay curious, stay positioned, and remember, everything we discussed today is educational commentary.
Not financial advice.
Do your own research.